Oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome to a Monday night edition, the Take Two edition of the Round 22 Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast, of course. Hopefully brought to you by CrowCast tonight. Certainly not brought to you by iNet, because they suck. And thankfully, Mac is with us again tonight. How are you, mate?
No, pretty good. As I said to you off air, bit tired. Did a lot of gardening today, but I enjoy it. I love working out there. It's good.
Yeah, beautiful. So fingers crossed everything's been reset, and I've harassed iNet no end, and they haven't offered me a sponsorship, Macca. Unfortunately, they should. But hopefully the mice on the treadmill keep turning tonight, and we get through the show. We'll probably only go for an hour tonight, I reckon. But look, I appreciate everyone who's joined us on Discord and YouTube for this Monday night. Fantastic. And of course, if you're on Discord and you want to have something to say, feel free, stick your hand up, and we'll take your questions gladly, won't we, mate?
We will.
All right. Now, Adelaide, sorry, mate. If I don't give Macca his 15 minutes of fame, then it just gets dirty, and we know what it's like when Macca starts getting a bit salty. So we'll cut it to we'll cut it to 5 minutes, because I think we went through the Geelong game and we don't care about many of the others. So let's just whiz through them. You ready?
Yeah. Well, we did the first one, so we'll get on to Essendon.
Essendon beat North by 9 points.
Yeah. As they once again, they just survived against a very ordinary side. No, they're only just travelling at the moment. Merritt was tagged out of the game to some degree.
Suns went down to Sydney by 24 points.
Yes, they did. Yeah. What else are we going to say? You want to very quickly?
Go on.
Sydney, Gold Coast win it for the first half, but then Sydney's midfield finally got on top, and then too good.
Sydney, good nick, going to be hard next week. Carlton just muscling up against Melbourne, won by 4 points at the G.
Horrible sight, actually, because they're looking like a good footy team. Their midfield was just too strong early, and they just keep on winning. That's all I'm going to say.
Freo smashing Eagles.
One thing I did want to say, the Grundy experiment does not work for Melbourne. It just does not work.
Grundy won't be at Melbourne next year. I could almost put money on it, I reckon.
Yeah. And very controversial finish in that game too. That ball, I don't think it was touched, but
I've moved on. Dockers beat Eagles.
Well, who wants to talk about that? Nothing.
Right. Hawthorn beating Western Bulldogs and making them still a little bit vulnerable, although I think they'll be all right. Yeah,
well, look, they got virtually a no-name midfield to some degree with Newcomb and Day and Warburg when you compare it to the other big names at other clubs. But by God, it's a bloody good midfield, and Sicily at the back end. And look, they're a club with a future. There's no doubt they're going to be rising up at the same time as we are. So yeah. I don't think
Hawthorn's midfield are going to be no names for that much longer, mate. I think it's shaping up really well.
It is, isn't it?
What they need is some key pillars.
Yep, agree.
And then St Kilda showing some good end of season form, getting up over Richmond, who've pulled up stumps by 36 points.
Yeah, just too strong. Marshall is an outstanding ruckman. I mean, how would we be if we had a Marshall playing for us? I mean, the guy not only is a great ruckman, he's like having an extra midfielder on the ground. He's a great player, and but they were far too good.
And then Port doing us a favour, getting up comfortably over GWS. The game was over pretty much halfway through the second quarter, I think. 51 points in the end, and Port bouncing back after a rocky month or so.
Yeah, Butters, Rosie, JHF, a few other players that they'd absolutely dominated the midfield, and GWS, who pride themselves on the midfield, well, they just weren't in it. But they didn't have any crummers up forward. There were two good crummers out injured, but no, I thought GWS was very ordinary. Port played very well, but I still don't think Port can win the flag.
No, you've been saying that. Interesting stat on first crack last night. I think in the last 22 years or whatever, no team that has finished fourth has made the grand final, let alone won a flag.
Yeah, I think I did read that same stat myself. So I think you're quite right there, Flynn.
Yeah, so fourth is a bit of a death knell. So still plenty to play for those second, third, and fourth spots as we have a look at the ladder quickly. And Collingwood still 2 games clear. Brisbane, Port, and Melbourne still fighting it out for a home final. Yeah, I don't know who's in the box seat there. Melbourne are slipping, and I'm starting to worry about Melbourne against Sydney in the last round, which we'd like them to win if they wouldn't mind.
Well,
Carlton
that would
50.
depend where they play. That would depend. If they drop Grundy and then go back to they had the side with Gorn dominating, they'll win the game because Sydney haven't got Ruckman to match him. But if they play Grundy, well, it weakens them.
Yeah, true. They're just out of kilter. So St Kilda on 48, Swans on 46. The Bulldogs in the 8 on 44, but with crappy percentage. Essendon on 44, GWS also on 44, Geelong on 42, Adelaide still in with a sniff on 40, and then the rest are gone. Richmond, Fremantle, Gold Coast, Hawthorn, North and West Coast. So yeah, the permutations are still, Macca, that if we beat Sydney next week, given that we've got West Coast the last week, if we beat Sydney next week, we're a pretty good chance.
Well, what I was going to say is that mathematically, to use an expression, we are still in it. But as you know, mathematically, when you say that, you miss most times. So, we'll do. We should. Well, I hope we'll do our part. Certainly, if we beat Sydney, we've done our part because we'll beat West Coast. But we are very reliant on other teams losing.
Well, we're only relying on Melbourne beating Sydney. That's what we're relying on.
I thought they would. I worked it out. I thought there were 2 games we were hinging on, but I could be wrong.
The Geelong St Kilda game doesn't affect us. It actually only affects those 2 sides. So I'm pretty sure we need to beat Sydney and obviously West Coast, and we need Melbourne to beat Sydney in the last game of the round, last game of the season. Well,
if that's the case, then mathematically we might be in with a big chance.
Well, it's a little bit more than mathematics. That's genuine. I mean, it's so tight, 7th through to 12th, that a team in 12th is still in with a genuine shot.
Yeah. I love the comment in the chat there. Did someone say KFC? Very good.
As I mentioned, thanks to everyone who's joined us on this off night. And we will get to any questions that are put to us on Discord. So for the 20-odd people that are in there, don't be shy. If you want to have your say, get in amongst to get your virtual hand up and we'll get you on board. But in the meantime, Mac, let's get to our game because that's what we were all waiting to do last night, sorry. And a bit of a heartbreaker again. And again, bad kicking, 28 scoring shots to 24. Yet we go down by 6 points, 15-9-99 to 13-15-93, Macca.
Just another loss that should have been a win team. And for the usual reason, missed shots for goal. And we're not talking about difficult shots for goal. We're talking about gimme shots for goal that under 14 guys would kick. I mean, just they would. They would kick it. Under 14 guys, you would expect to kick from there. So Laird's got to improve to get up to under 14 standard with his goal kicking. So that was bloody terrible. It was horrific, actually. Walker he shanked one which hit the post. I mean, these type of things. If you work out the things that we just should have got. I mean, we could have possibly won, not comfortably, but reasonably well. We also did have that horrible little patch in the third quarter too, where Charlie got right off.
It wasn't a patch. It was a whole quarter just about.
Yeah, but Charlie Cameron had a burst where he got the three in a very, very short time, and that was. They did it very well because they isolated him, and which was pretty clever on their part.
Yeah, but that was only part of the story, Macca. Yes, they isolated him up forward. They cleared their tools out. Hitwood and Danaher got up pretty high. But it was our inability of our midfielders to get hold of the agate in the third quarter that was telling. I think Brisbane had 11 of the first 12 centre clearances or some rubbish like that. We just couldn't get our hands on the ball. And when you have a look at some of the highlights and see how that ball was coming down, again on first crack last night, they showed a down the ground view of those 3 goals that Charlie kicked in the third, and it was all on the back of transition, and they just didn't. We just didn't cover them on transition. They were able to get on the outside of us, and away they went. And yes, Charlie obviously is very difficult to beat, but I don't think Max had a lot of opportunity given how easily the ball was getting in, and it took most of the quarter to redress that situation through the midfield. And Nick showed a lot of faith in Michael Annie, probably out of necessity because we didn't have any other good matchup.
Yeah, you are right. When you get smashed in the centre in that particular period, I thought Sloane attended too many centre bounces for the game. He attended about 11 or 12, something like that, and I think I remember him clearing one. The other thing too, we've got to remember their ruckman is a very, very good ruckman, and he actually taps to his players, whereas Rob taps to anywhere. So there are always reasons why you do get towed up and it depends who you've got in there, and it depends on how the ruckman's hitting the ball and who they've got in there. So, but yeah, we did absolutely get smashed in that third quarter. I agree with you.
Yeah, Mac, I think you're being a little bit generous to Riley O'Brien. The Big O's not a bad ruck, but he's not a world beater.
He's a damn sight better than Rob.
Yeah, well, who'd we have? We had Rory Laird attended 9 centre bounces in the third quarter. How many did Geordie attend? Geordie attended... sorry, just bear with me a second. Geordie attended also 9. Where's Matty Crouch? How many did he attend? He attended 9 also. And how many did Sloane attend? He attended 6. Now, the telling one is Schoenberg, who was the younger bloke that was in our midfield rotations. How many did he attend in the third quarter? 2. So there you have it right there, Macca, in a nutshell. In an absolute nutshell, there you have it.
Yeah, but our old timers got pressed.
And I just... I just don't understand how this can continue to happen when we're in a rebuild. We've got young kids champing at the bit to play midfield, and they just don't get a look in, mate.
No, the funny thing too, I thought Schomburg was playing pretty well, but yesterday.
Very well.
Was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago. 2 days ago now. But no, I thought it was one of his better games. And actually, I've been pretty down and been pretty critical of him during the year so far. But I thought that was probably the best he's looked so far this year. He really looked like he was interested in really getting into the game. And I thought his dashing off with the ball sometimes was very, very good indeed. Showed a real turn of pace at times. So I thought early in the piece he was going to be the answer to us. Then later on, last year in particular, I thought, well, he's not going to make it. And, no,
Yeah,
to
you
his
jumped off
credit,
pretty quick, I got to say.
I did jump off. I did.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I liked what I saw last week. If he can do that every week, he's in my team.
Yeah, well, he's a kid, mate, and you got to put up with these peaks and troughs, and that's what this club doesn't do. And we're seeing it right now at the pointy end of the season. We're running Rory Laird, Matty Crouch, and Rory Sloane predominantly through the midfield, and it's just not dynamic enough. It's just not dynamic enough, Macca, and I'll contend that Matt Crouch and Rory Laird, since Matt Crouch has come back into the side and he's played, like, he's got a lot of statistics and played pretty well, but the effectiveness of Rory Laird has dropped off because you've got two players playing the same role. You've got Matt Crouch coming in and basically playing the role that Laird has been playing for most of the season and most for the past 2 seasons. And, unsurprisingly, Laird's still getting the ball, but he's not getting him in the same positions, and his effectiveness has just been diminished. It's the wrong balance, mate.
Yeah, I agree with you that Laird does suffer from it. He still performs around the ground, and going by the number of possessions that he gets. But,
he doesn't perform around the ground. He does, you can't just look at raw numbers. You've actually got to look at what's happening. And Laird had less than, what did he have? He had 20 odd handballs, didn't he? 15 handballs or something.
Well, I don't know what he said. I haven't got his stats. Hang on.
Well, we'll go through his stats in a minute. But he had a lot of.
He had 14 kicks and 20 handballs, and 8 tackles. Yeah, that's a pretty good game.
Well, it is if those balls are being used, but I think we only got 200 and something metres gained out of him.
I don't know that.
When you've got 2 midfielders that are getting you in total 400 metres for the game, that's not good enough. You can have 1 maybe, but not 2.
But no, fair enough. And he did cost us the game, no doubt about that. Without missing those goals,
yeah,
that was horrible.
Yeah, we spoke about that last night. But you're right. Professional standards just dropped off. Now, last week, you said that Josh Rochelli should have been dropped.
Yes.
As it turned out, they ended up, they call it dropping, but they played him as a sub, so I count that as not dropping him. But they kept Rory Sloane in at his expense. Now, in hindsight, Macca, do you think that was the correct call?
Yeah, I thought the call with Rochelli was right. I don't think the call of retaining Sloane was right, though.
So who would you have brought in?
Look, you've caught me right on the spot. But if we go, the problem is when you've got a midfield that is already fairly slow, and then you add on to that a guy that's rising 34 and recovering from a knee injury, you're not doing the right thing. You're just not. Maybe you might be right in the sense that maybe you do retain Rochelli, but what I liked about making him sit on the pine and be used as a sub, it let him know that, look, mate, you're actually not out there in our first 22, and when you come on, you've got to make an impact if you want to get back into the side. And I think that message got through to him, because I thought that was the best I've seen him perform for many weeks. So I think that move did what it should have done. The problem is that we Sloane. I come back to Sloane all the time.
Well, see, and this is the thing, right? If you don't have a ready replacement for either one of those two, and given that irrespective of our position on the ladder, we are in development mode, and you can go to one or two ways with a kid, right? You can do the discipline thing and say, we're going to drop you and teach you a lesson, or you can back him in and go, look, you've had a really rough couple of weeks. You owe us something. We're going to run you through the midfield, and you show us what you got. Now, to me, just me, you might be different, but just me, a positive message and a challenge to a young kid who has got pace and has shown that he can get centre bounce clearances is far better than putting a one-legged dinosaur in there out of spite. And that's what we did, Macca. Out of spite, we played Rory Sloane ahead of Josh Rochelle, and it shits me off.
Tell us, tell us what you're really thinking, Pete.
Well, it's true.
Look, I think that you said who would you put in there? I would have actually rotated Pedler and Soligo through there at times, and rather than putting in those in the rotations that Sloane had, I'd be rotating Pedler and Soligo through there. I still think that Rochelle was not firing on if he's an 8-cylinder car, he was firing on about 3 to 4.
No one's disputing that, Macca. No one's disputing that. But what message are you sending? We're going to drop you in and retain a 1946 Holden.
No, the message is, look, we have to look at. You can't just look at the whole team there. We're talking about Rochelle on his own. There's a lot more in that kid than what he was giving, and so the message to him was, look, we want you on the side, but you're going to sort of sit on the pine, and you're going to come on.
Bullshit,
and then
old school thinking, Macca.
Can I finish?
No,
I haven't even finished.
Go on.
And the thing is, you have to have an impact when you come on, and you have the ability to do that. You tell him that. And I tell you what, the guy did come on, and he did what they asked. He did more in that half than he's done in any game for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
I don't disagree with you, but you've just made the key point, right? And I won't labour this, but you've made a key point. You're saying to him, when you come on, you've got to make an impact. So tell me this, why can't you say that to him before the first bounce and pick him in the 22?
Well, they would have done that last week, and they would have done it the week before. And the week before, they would have said, we want you to make an impact this week.
He's a kid, Macca. He's a kid. And we've got Crouch and we've got Laird in the midfield, 2 stodgy old buggers, and we drop a fast kid who's known to get centre bounce clearances out of spite and play a dinosaur. I say you go in with a positive message to that kid and go, you've been down, you've been down, we need you to step up, give us what you've got. That's the difference between you coaching and me coaching. I'm not saying either is right, but they're the 2 different ways you go about it. And I would have gone the positive route.
Obviously, I would have even have Sloane in the side. That's so.
Yeah, but who do you replace him with then, Macca?
As I said, you've got your 3 starters for a start, haven't you? You've got your 3 starters.
Just a simple question. Who do you replace? If you're not going to play Rochelle, if you're not going to play Rochelle and you're not going to play Sloane, who do you replace Sloane with?
It's very hard to answer when you talk over me, but I'll try.
But you're not doing it.
Yeah, I give up. I'm trying to talk. Every time I say it, you interrupt. Dawson.
Come on, don't get salty. Dawson's already in.
Laird. Already
in.
And Crouch. They start.
Already in.
And then rotate Soligo. And also Pedler. In fact, I like Pedler in the middle. And what I would do with Pedler is...
I've heard this, but you're not answering my question, so I am going to talk over you. If you're going to take Rory Sloane out of the 22, who are you going to bring into the 22?
Well, if you look in the 2s, what's his name? The guy we got from GWS.
Haitley.
Why would you not
bring in speed? We've already got 2 inside midfielders, Laird and Crouch. Well, you want to bring in another inside midfielder?
Haitley would look like a greyhound compared to Sloane.
But he's not, so he's not the right person because he's not quick. You need to bring in speed. Some people on the chat are saying Cook. I could cop Cook, except the problem with that is that we had Chase Jones coming out, which we lose a little bit of flexibility because Chase has been playing well on the wing. Cook, when he came in, was playing a little bit half-backish. So we were stymied by the fact that Chase Jones was injured, and that's what I'm saying. The last and all right, we disagree. That's fine, but in my opinion, the last option that they should have looked at was playing Rory Sloane, and unfortunately, instead of doing that, they kept a young kid off for 2/3 of the game who could have made an impact by just giving him a chance and actually playing him in the midfield rotation instead of in the graveyard hard forward. That's I guess that's my point. You know, they've been playing him at half forward. He's in and out of the game. He's playing like a bit of a seagull, all the rest of it. So you say, we need pace in the midfield, Josh. You've been down for the last couple of weeks. We need your pace and your clearance ability in there. We're going to put you in the rotation. You need to step up.
Well, you know, I'm not going to keep the argument going because I
lack
just wouldn't.
Pace during the midfield.
And putting Sloane there is the last thing. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, and you're saying Rochelle solves that, but it doesn't necessarily solve his form situation. And I am a firm believer in the fact that you've got to earn your position in the side. And
so you would have dropped Riley Tilthorpe in about round 4 then?
Well, he's been dropped several times over in his career so far because they give him chance after chance. His form overall hasn't been too bad. It's justified his position. He's not dominant. I agree, he's not dominant. He's had dominant moments, but not dominant games. All right, we'll throw him out. You're going to put in Fiend.
No, I'm asking you. Like, your selection philosophy is that you drop the young kids when they're out of form instead of backing them in, which is what happened with Harry Schomburg for a season, which is what's happening with Sam Berry for the whole season. And I'm saying to you, I don't understand what purpose that serves.
Well, look, I'm not going to argue anymore because I have an opinion. You don't agree with me. A lot of men out there don't agree with me, but that I can only express what I think. Now,
yeah, no, that's fine. I'm not having an argument with you. We're debating two philosophies, right?
Yeah, you can belt me out there with a hammer, but I'm not going to change my mind because that's how I saw it. Because Rochelle wasn't worth a pinch of shit the week before.
I agree with you. We both said the same thing, but he's a kid, right? Jake Saligo has had games where he's had less than 5 touches, and then the next week he's come up and had 15. Right? They're kids, Mac.
No.
Yes, that's exactly true. Jake Saligo has had games where he's had done bugger all and stayed in and got touches the next week. I know he's been dropped a couple of times. These are kids, and this is a development phase of the team, right? You have got to be able to ride the roller coaster with kids, and you've got to show them trust. And because Matthew Nicks does not show trust to the kids, and you and I have agreed on that point during the course of the season, he doesn't trust the kids. That's why Luke Pedlar gets 1 CBA against Brisbane, right? Doesn't trust the kids. So what you end up with is wasting valuable game time and development time on blokes that are not going to be part of our future.
I agree with you. There's not an argument about that.
I guess my comments about Josh Rochelle feed into that. You got to show faith. You've got to trust and show faith.
All I can say is that my philosophy was the same as the club's with Rochelle, and I thought that he stuck it back up to the club and said, "I can really play good footy," and he did. So
yeah.
At
the cost of the win, potentially.
Well, we don't know, Fiend. We don't know.
Well, you don't, but we certainly got cut up for pace in the third quarter when the Wits were cracking Macca.
But really, we make it about Rochelle. I think it's more about Sloane.
Well, no, the debate isn't about Sloane because you're saying you want him out, but then you don't know. You're not coming up with solutions. I guess what I'm saying is that in the absence of Chase Jones, or with not much else coming up with any sort of pace in the twos, look, I'm with you. If Josh Rochelle, if we had a bloke banging down the door in the twos to come in, then sure, you drop Josh back to the twos, right, to teach him a lesson. But the fact that they picked him as a sub shows you that we didn't have a lot of options, right? Didn't have a lot of options. And when you don't have those sorts of options, right, then what you're left with is to show faith with the people that you've got. And the alternative, which is what Nick's did, is that he chose to be stubborn and sub Rochelle and in his place play a dinosaur, which cost us because we got absolutely overrun in the midfield when the Wits were cracking. Anyway, that we've got two different points of view. That's fine. People on YouTube, and if you're listening or watching during the week, I'd be really interested in your thoughts and comments. So drop your comment in the comment section of the video on YouTube. I'd be really interested to see what you think. Macca and I are at odds on this one.
Yeah, look, and we're not miles apart. It's just a question of the philosophy of how you treat a player that's not playing well. That's all.
All right, let's have a look at some players because the disappointing thing for mine, Mac, was the wastefulness. We'll go through the team's stats in a minute, but for mine, this is all about execution, right?
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, only a little bit of improvement in execution, particularly goal shooting, and we comfortably win the game.
Yeah, and goal shooting for sure, but there were also key moments in the game where we fumbled or we missed a handball or, what have you, and we didn't make the most of our opportunities. And at the end of the day, it was about opportunities, and Brisbane took theirs, and we didn't take ours.
No doubt about that.
That's normally the trait. That's normally the trait of a young team.
Well, no, because it was in this case the players that missed it were very, very experienced players. Mate.
That was going to be my point, Macca. It's normally the trait of a young team, and you could write it off as they're a young, inexperienced team. But as you rightly point out, Macca, apart from one or two, it was generally the older blokes. It was the older blokes, and we spoke about this before Inet rudely cut us off last night. This is the old crop of players that have let us down time and time again. If there's any group of players you wouldn't want to trust as a coach, it's that lot, not the young kids.
Well, you were actually going down that theme before you ran into trouble last night, and you're 100% right about that. The sooner we get into a situation where that particular group has been replaced by more than adequate players, well, then we'll be in a much better position. Because that group just sort of doesn't perform in the very, very crucial moment.
Yeah. Brodie Smith was relatively ineffectual. Let us down at key moments. Matty Crouch had a good game. He's never going to be Christian Petrarca or, Clayton Oliver or Scott Pendlebury or anyone like that. But as an inside mid, as a coal-faced mid, he's certainly in good nick, and he will look good in another Guernsey. Because there's lots of teams around that will value his set of skills, and rightly so. And I'm happy for Matt that he's been able to come back in and showcase his skills. But we had the balance in the midfield all wrong. A lot of the senior players, when we really needed them to fire up, and Tex included, weren't able to. And I include Darcy Fogarty in that. He had a stinker of a game, Mac. I actually part of my multi was Darcy kicking 3 goals because I thought he was just really starting to hit some really good form. And Darcy's got to learn to be able to perform consistently. He had a bit of a lean patch during the middle part of the season, then he had a couple of good games, and I really thought he was just starting to work it through, and he went back to that wrestling thing. Admittedly, I don't think we put the ball to Darcy's advantage terribly much. I think we dropped it on Harris Andrews' head a bit, and the other lad that was playing on him.
Yeah, but there's an answer for that, Bean, in the sense that last week the game before Brisbane. He played so well because he wasn't wrestling. He was leading. He was getting. In fact, he was leading as high as the wing at times, and so sometimes over, and putting himself into the game. And unfortunately, the reason it was dropped on their head is because he wasn't bloody running. He wasn't leading.
Agreed. There should be a team rule.
Horrible game.
There should be a team rule, Mac, that if Fogarty's stationary, you don't kick it to him.
I totally agree with that. Totally agree because. He let himself down and he let us down because I mean the guy's got talent to burn, and when he showed that the week before, he was leading up, he was everywhere, I'd say it's one of the worst games he's played because he had no impact on the game whatsoever. I think he kicked. Did he get a goal? I think he might have got one.
I think he did. Missed one, I think.
He missed. Yeah, no, very poor game.
Yep. All right, let's run through some team stats, shall we? Disposals, 320 to 367. Kicks were even, but we had about 37 more handballs than them. We had 7 more inside 50s. Our disposal efficiency was fairly even at 75 to 73. Our efficiency inside 50, which is shots per inside 50, was 55%, but obviously our accuracy was down. Free kicks were even. We spoke a little bit about the umpires yesterday. I don't need to go through that. Have a look at this hit-outs number, Mac, 56 to 39. And yet we got absolutely torched at times in the middle, particularly in that third quarter. Centre clearances, we lost 15 to 12. Stoppage clearances, we were up by 9, 32 to 23. And I would venture, without looking at the player stats just yet, that a lot of those stoppage clearances were not from our main midfield players. They were from our peripheral players like Murphy and Pedler and those blokes.
I can't answer that because I don't know the stats for it. But we did do quite well around the clearances in general, but we did not in the third quarter. That's where those centre-bounce ones. That's a killer.
Busted us up in that third quarter. Contested possessions were even for the game, 130 to 133. Uncontested, we had the ball on the outside. In fact, I like the way that we started, Macca, with a really concerted effort to move the ball around relatively quickly by foot and try to spread Brisbane out. I thought that was a really good tactic. Unfortunately, what we need to be able to do is to switch into that mode at high pressure points in the game. And it's at those points that we tend to fall back to our old habits of kicking down the line or whatever. And it's, when the game is going back and forth and it's turning into a bit of a shootout, you want to be able to take possession for a little while and just make the opposition run around to try and man up. First half of the first quarter looked great for that, but we needed to be able to do that when we took possession in the third quarter to try and get the game back on our turns and to wrest momentum back.
The only player who you could possibly say did try to do that was Miller. I thought Miller.
Yeah.
He looked at. He tried to do that every time he got a possession of the ball. I don't know what his efficiency was, but it must be very high because I thought he used it very well.
Yeah, and see, that sort of game style requires a lot of running by your midfielders.
It does.
And when you've got Laird, Crouch, and Sloane in your midfield rotations, you get to the third quarter. No, it's a valid point, Matt. You get to the third quarter, those blokes haven't got any petrol left.
Mm.
So you're not getting as many options. You're not getting those diagonals. You're not getting those short kicks that you can move the ball quickly to spread them. And that's what happened. As the game wore on, we weren't able to spread Brisbane anywhere near as much. And in fact, the opposite was true. They were able to spread us and clear out their forward line and get the ball moving laterally and find openings down the corridor. And, as a result, Charlie gets 3 goals.
Yeah, and they did that very well, actually. It just looked almost with no competition whatsoever the way they did that, just in that particular quarter. And I was wondering where all our bloody players were because there's always seemed to have one on their own, and then we'd always have a player in between and over the top to that one and so on. And that's why the ball got down there so quickly at times.
Well, and that's what happens when you do those little chippy chip 20 to 30 metre 45-degree passes, mate. You're spreading them out, and players are running to cover space, and players are running to cover the fat side, and you're just moving, you're shifting the zone, from left to right. And eventually, it's just like basketball, eventually, or soccer, you'll find a hole, right? And what they were doing was moving laterally and then finding gaps in them coming down the corridor and moving the ball beautifully through the corridor with a couple of quick handballs and a long kick in.
Yeah. I mean, we had our moments, particularly in the first quarter where we were doing it. And I thought even in the last quarter, we started trying to do it again. But we just had, it was an interesting game because we third quarter, if you look historically, is not our good quarter. Third quarter I always called it our danger quarter.
Yeah, but that doesn't excuse it, Macca.
It doesn't. No, but it's. I just don't know why it is. Why the players don't come out as good as they went in. It happens. If you look at our statistically, we've got a lot of times that we come out very poor in the third quarter. I don't know why.
Well, maybe the theory is this. Maybe Matthew Nix is just not a very good coach, because there's not often that we reset. There's one thing that you'll rarely be able to accuse a Crows team of, and that is a lack of effort. And, I think sometimes our effort overcomes our lack of system and our lack of quality tactics under pressure. And to me, what kept us in the game against Brisbane was effort, particularly towards the end of the third quarter and coming into the fourth quarter. It was our effort. There was nothing wrong with our effort in the third quarter. It was all about the fact that Brisbane changed their strategy, and we didn't foresee that. We didn't have a counter to it, and and our selection hamstrung us because, when you think about it, we had Keane, Borlase, Michael Annie, who was the other, and Worrell down back with Miller and Smith, right? And they've got two tools. So why did we pick an extra tool?
Miller and Hinge. Smith was playing on the wing.
Sorry, yeah.
We were definitely.
And Nankervis as well. So we were very tall down back, and it was quite obvious that was going to be a wrong matchup, and it turned out that way. Borlase was subbed out. I really think that our selection was a bit off. I think.
I agree.
People talking about Braden Cook coming in. I would have brought in Braden Cook for Borlase, and I think that they didn't want to drop Borlase because he had a good debut. But I think it would have been a strategic drop that you could have explained to Borlase quite comfortably and said, look, it's just a matchup situation this week, because we were poorly matched up.
I can't argue that. I looked at the back line and I thought we're going to be exposed here.
I mean, if you look at where their goals came from, Cameron got 3, McCarthy got 2, Zach Bailey got 2, McCluggage got 2. The first tall that kicked a goal was Hipwood with 1. So their goals came from their smaller players.
Yep. I agree.
And that's a selection error.
Well, yeah, I didn't like our back line when I saw it. I did fear, the couple of guys who really did score well. I did fear them because watch them every week, and they've got good smalls around. They don't get most of their goals out the talls. They get most of their goals out of smalls or midfield types. So I mean, I don't think we did our research very well, or if we did, we didn't use it very well.
But that's inexcusable, Macca.
Yeah, well, it's a coaching error. There's no doubt about that.
It's a match committee error. I would put it down to. A couple were made, I believe. Anyway, let's get back to the stats. Contested posies, 50 in front. We had on the outside for a lot of the time. Marks 88 to 90, inside 50 10 to 13. Contested marks 12 to 6. Defensively, as I said, the effort was there. 74 tackles to 52. 17 inside 50 to 9. Nothing wrong with our effort. Never is. As I said, I actually think that our effort sometimes just belies our simplistic game plan. We seem to start off with a good game plan, but we don't seem to be able to adapt quickly or adapt very well. There doesn't seem to be a lot of, we place a lot of store on our seniors and our on-field leadership, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of on-field leadership or direction from the sidelines when things change. There doesn't seem to be any recognition of where, like, Brisbane had momentum for the majority of that third quarter. I didn't see any effort at any stage to change the way that we were dealing with it. We need to be able to react to those momentum shifts far more quickly, in my view.
Well, that's unarguable. I agree with you, and I think that is a coaching weakness, in the sense of our ability to react to change situations. We have a game plan that we want to enact and we want to adhere to, but the opposition also, they have people who watch what our game plan is, and they move players around, they change players around and change their own tactics to negate that. So if it's negated and it's changed and you're in a different situation, then we have to adjust to the changed situation. So, but I think we're always far too slow to do that.
Well, I think our game plan is fairly obvious. We're a rebounding team. We're a counter-punching team. We will rarely win. You look at Port Adelaide, the difference between Port Adelaide and Adelaide. Port Adelaide have a very strong midfield. So yes, they're a forward-moving team. They will win clearances, and they will get the ball forward, and they will lock it in, and they will keep pressure on, and they don't transition as much as what we do. We don't tend to be as dynamic around the midfield area. So a lot of our work is off the rebound, off intercept marks, off chains of handball, of changing direction, all that sort of stuff. Let's have a look at our strength and our speed, with Miller, etc., coming off half-back, Chase Jones when he's playing, etc., coming off half-back. We're quite good off half-back. So we when we're playing well, we shift the ball laterally and we move the ball quickly off half-back. It's a different style, but it's the only style that we've got. The only other style that we've got is to close it down like we try to do against GWS and try to make it an inside game.
Yeah, you're quite right. In fact, I remember the commentator saying in the game that when we got a goal, when we went end to end, went the whole distance, and they said you rarely see that. Well, we did another one within a couple of minutes, so we did two on the trot. So it's, as you say, we actually attack from the back most of the time.
Yeah,
and
Hinge is the other one. Sorry, I keep forgetting him. I don't know why, but
Hinge
and Miller are very dynamic off half-back.
Yeah, and most of our attacks get launched in that manner. You're quite right about Port Adelaide. They have the luxury of three really classy midfielders, and their game plan is totally different. Get it in there and lock it in there until eventually you get a goal. Whereas we're open to counter-attack.
Yeah. So I still think that lack of flexibility, Mac, it comes down to our personnel.
Oh, of course it does. It has to be. I mean, if you compare our midfield to Port's, not only is it it's an absolute contrast in both youth and speed and perhaps ability.
Yep. And as mentioned, that means that we're quite one-dimensional, and people go on saying, Matty Crouch deserves his spot and all the rest of it, and on form he does. But if you're talking about balance, then something's got to give. That balance isn't right. The balance has shifted since Matt Crouch has been reconsidered. And it's not about individual form as such. It's about how do you want your team to play and how versatile do you want your team. And at the moment, with Crouch, Laird and Sloane in there, we don't have any versatility at all. And I think that shows when teams like Brisbane kick it up a gear, we don't have any more gears. We're already going at 110%. You know,
No, you're right.
We don't have that. We're yap dogs. We scrap. We fight. We tackle. We close it in. All the rest of it. But when opposition teams get the ball on the outside, we can't go with them.
No, you're quite right. And it's interesting that we have lacked a quality midfielder for a very, very long time, actually. And we bring in players from other clubs, we draft, but we don't seem to concentrate on what we really need, which is a good, fast midfielder. I mean, that's what we really need. We really need one with who's a very good ball getter, who gets a lot of the ball and is fast. And we just don't have that.
Macca, we do have them.
Well, I'm talking about not of the quality that I'm thinking of.
What quality are you thinking of?
I mean, we don't have a Petrarca or an Oliver.
No, but that's 7 seasons in, 8 seasons in. We're a young team.
Yeah, that's a fair comment.
I mean, we've got the players. We're not playing them. I'm glad I'm slowly bringing you around to my point, even though you're kicking and screaming. I know you'll get there. Because we do have the players. We've got Luke Pedlar. We've got Jake Saligo. We've got Josh Rochelle. We've got Rankin when he's fit. Isaac Rankin hasn't had a CBA since about round 3. What the hell, right? What that means with those 4, we've got Harry Schomburg, right? With those 5 young lads, we've got the opportunity to limit their midfield time. We don't, it's not an all or nothing situation. There's nothing wrong with rotating 6 or 7 guys through the midfield. You don't have to have the same 3 or 4, right? So we've got all those lads that can pinch in. Lukey Pedlar and Josh Rochelle, their ratio of clearances to attendances is amazing for their lack of games.
Well, I do agree about you're right. But I've already stated I would have used Pedlar a lot.
Yeah.
And I can't see why they don't use Pedlar in this particular sense, where perhaps you start him in the midfield at the clearance situation, and after the ball is gone, and then he goes back to his position, and somebody else goes onto the ball. If he hasn't got the engine to run, but use him in the middle at those CBAs, because he does very well. He's got a very good ratio when he's in there.
You exactly, and you can be creative with that. You can rotate them triangularly through the forward line. You can have, like, Pedlar's a capable forward. Harry can kick a goal. Josh Rochelle obviously can kick a goal. Isaac Rankin can kick a goal when he's playing. Jake Saligo's no slouch up forward. You can rotate those guys through the half forward and through the wing and on the bench. Give them 5-minute bursts, 10-minute bursts, through the midfield. Make us difficult to match up on. Make us confusing to play on. At the moment, when you play Adelaide's midfield, you know what you're going to get, and you know what sort of game style it's going to be. And we've got 3 blokes in there, and I'll include Laird with this: Laird, Crouch, and Sloane. That they're not difficult to play against, Macca.
No, actually, their job basically, because Dawson is the quality player, is that if they do get the ball, is to try and feed Dawson if they don't have an opportunity. But Dawson is an elite mid. Somebody just puts that in the chat, and I agree with that. We didn't get him as a mid, but he can play. He's a quality mid. But you're right, we need those fast breakaway, and we've got the young lads. I agree with you. Whether they'll get to the level that I would like to see, where you've got one that's absolutely dominant, I don't know. But you're quite right. You won't know unless you play them.
I mean, what do you want, Macca? Honestly, where do you think Petrarca started out? Where do you think Oliver started out? Where do you think John Newcombe was a mid-season bloody pluck from the VFL, for God's sakes? You've got to give these kids opportunity, and you've got to be able to. You've got to trust them. You've got to trust them, and you've got to let the cards fall as they may. We are not in contention this year. We didn't start the year being in contention. And it really, really pisses me off that ever since we got a sniff of finals, our philosophy, our selection philosophy has changed. And it has cost these lads games. And that's my gripe in our earlier discussion about Rochelle and Sloane. I guess that's my gripe. Sometimes you've got to wear it a bit, like we've been wearing it with Riley Thilthorpe most of the season, right? Sometimes you've got to wear it with these young kids. You've got to let them learn. And they don't learn in the SANFL. The SANFL is a completely different game. And they don't get any benefit out of playing a quarter and a half off the bench, right? You've got to let them learn.
I'm not arguing with you at all about that. And I would like to see these boys come in there and rotate through there. They don't have to be at every CBA, but if in the one quarter you might be using a combination of Pedler, it could be Rochelle, it could be whoever, a Rankin, just rotating as the third midfielder. So you don't have three slowish blokes. So you've got some speed.
I mean, you look at Harry's development since he's been back on the side. He started off, a bit wobbly, just there and thereabouts, and every week he's just grown a little bit, and every game that he's played, you'd probably say that's his best game for the season. There's been definite improvement, and I thought his game against Brisbane was exceptionally good. He got 21 disposals. He hasn't been up over 20 disposals for a while, Harry, at AFL level. 21 touches, 11 and 10. Contested possessions, good speed, good delivery into the forward line. That just shows you the benefit of playing them there. Just play them there.
Yeah, I did like his game. It was the most I've seen Harry really look like he wanted to be in there and he wanted to get the ball and he wanted it to come to him all the time. I liked that. He didn't act like he was just like a subservient player there. He acted as if he was, a quality part of that midfield. I did like the way he broke away from there several times, demanding the ball.
And that doesn't just happen, Mac. That happens after a kid feels comfortable and a kid feels that he belongs, and a kid feels like he's got a bit of license to play his game. And I feel like, look at the way we have impacted Chase Jones's career early on, where he had so much going through his head, and we just didn't let him play his game. Sam Berry, I think, is suffering from that. Harry Schonberg suffered from that in the first half of the season. The Adelaide Crows are guilty of doing this in their development of young lads quite often, in my opinion. They fill their heads with shit rather than just saying, we drafted you for a reason, go out and show you what you're worth.
Oh, yeah, well, we did that, made that great mistake with pick 6, didn't we? We drafted a young lad and put him straight into the A's in the back lines, and he wasn't up to it, and it just knocked all the stuffing out of him. In the end, he doesn't want to play footy.
Oh, I think, I don't know whether. I think that might be a different kettle of fish.
What do you think?
Oh, there's no point talking about Mackesy. That's ancient news. What I'm talking about is how we develop our young kids, right? And how we develop our young kids, in my view, we confuse them. We confuse them by playing them out of position. Jordan Gallucci was another one. We pick a kid as a fast mid who straight lines the ball and hits the ball hard, and we play him on half forward.
Gallucci was a very, very, very sad story. It was a waste of a player.
And I know, let's not get into a debate about Geordie, but, it's just indicative of how we do things, right? Even Tex Walker, when he comes on the scene, we play him in the twos. Jesus, we probably cost him 30 games because we played him in the twos or played him at Nord all the time. Just let the kid play. Darcy Fogarty the same. Just let the kid play. Our coaching staff, I don't know whether it's because our club is too sensitive to the supporter base and too sensitive to the emotional stuff, like, Rory and Tex, retiring at the same time and all that sort of rubbish. I don't know whether it's that or whether it's just poor judgment. by our list management and coaching staff. But one thing we do not have name me the last person that trusted kids in big games, Macca. The last coach that we had.
I'm struggling.
Well, who played in the 97-98 grand finals? Kids like James Tyson, Chad Ridden,
Troy
Bond, Blight. Kane Johnson, Andrew McLeod, these young kids that were trusted. He trusted them. He pumped them up and trusted them. Goody was another one. We people forget that we had a pretty young side around yes, we had some champions, but we also had a very young side. And we haven't had a coach willing to trust the new generation coming through as much as Malcolm. Malcolm had, there was no place for seniority in Malcolm's teams. We all know the story about McDermott and Jarman and McGuinness. See you later, boys. That's exactly what needs to happen right now.
And
right now.
Pathetic Pittman.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about blokes that he cut.
No, but he fired him up though, in the sense that
but what I'm saying is that he trusted the kids, Macca. He trusted the kids. He gave them roles. Kane Johnson's role in that final series was fantastic. He was a kid. Yeah. Was it his second season or third season or something? So
good player.
We've got to. We haven't done that in the back half of this year. It's been so disappointing to watch because we haven't done it, and it's going to be to our detriment. It's probably set our development back 12 months, in my opinion, because next year you're going to have Tech's a year older and probably not as effective, and we've got a midfield that will, still have Laird and maybe Crouch, who knows, in there for another season, and it's just going to be a waste. We've wasted 15 games.
Well, I will agree with you that as the season's gone on and the chance of making finals increases, the selections have got become more and more conservative and less young ones and more older ones. That although injuries it's interesting though, injuries have forced him to play some young players.
Exactly.
And they forced him. They wouldn't have been there otherwise. But they've done very, very well. So,
name me one kid that's come in on the back of an injury, Mac, that hasn't performed. I can't think of one this season.
No, they've done very, very well. Worrell have got his game without a chance without Duday getting injured? And yet Worrell, I think now, he's developed.
Yeah, Worrell would have come in for Murray.
For Murray, yeah, but he wouldn't have got the number of games he has got, and I reckon he's developing into an outstanding player.
100%, 100% agree. And if neither of those, if Duday and Murray hadn't got injured, he wouldn't have got a game.
Yeah, and you take young Dan Curvis, he wouldn't have got a game either without injury. And I do like that lad. I think he's got he'll be a regular in our side for a long time. But I think he's a player that can play in a large number of positions, a variety of positions.
I agree with that. It looks like he's fairly versatile. So, that just underpins my point, Mac. You're absolutely right. Some of the selections were forced. We've only played Braden Cook on the back of an injury, and he didn't play badly when he came in. We're still playing blokes like Lockie Murphy, and we talk when Lockie has a good game. We talk about his effort and his fearlessness and all that sort of stuff. Name me another team that Lockie Murphy would be first 22 in, apart from West Coast.
Look, there wouldn't be too many. Put it that way.
That's right. That's
North
right.
Melbourne,
So why are we playing him? We just gave Lockie Murphy 2 years.
Yeah, I was amazed at that.
And no disrespect to Lockie Murphy, because Lockie Murphy puts in 1,000% every week. He goes where angels fear to tread. He's not bad around stoppage and all the rest of it. But he would not get a game in another bloody team. of any note.
No.
Certainly not in a team that's on the rise. He wouldn't get a game at Gold Coast or Sydney or Hawthorn or one of those. It just wouldn't get a game. And yet he's first 22 every week, Mac.
Yeah, I know.
You know, Brody Smith. Brody Smith is another one. Brody Smith has not been effective for 99% of the season. He's had good moments, but his disposal lets him down. He often turns the ball over. Defensively, he can be a liability. He wouldn't get Is there a top 8 team that would play Brody Smith in their best 22 at the moment?
Marginal.
I don't think so.
Well, he'd be marginal, put it that way.
Yeah, marginal. All right. So we're a team on the up with 10,000 halfback flanks. Why are we playing him? Right? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I know what the coach would say. The coach would say we do need some senior players out there to, as show some leadership to the young lads. I'm not saying you're wrong, Fee. I'm just saying that's what the coach would say.
And that's true. And my counter to that, if I was having a one-on-one with Nixie, is to say that 9 times out of 10 this season, it's been the senior players that have let us down in big key moments.
Yeah. Well,
not just against Brisbane.
The interesting thing about Smith is that the one thing I don't like about Smith and his game is that his usage of the ball is horrible mostly. That big, long dump kick. You know, they say Smith gained 665 metres, but because he dumps the ball to nobody most of the time, it would be an interesting stat to know. It'd be an interesting stat to know how many metres went back the other way after the ball landed.
100%. It'd be a great stat to know how many metres came from his kick. So, you know, he gained 60 metres from his kick. What was the next meterage? Was it positive or negative? You know,
it would be interesting
because effective disposal includes kicking to a contest, right? And that's all he ever does. So, you know, we've got Laird, Crouch, we've got Sloane, Smith. There's 4 players I can name off the top of my head and Lockie Murphy is 5 that probably wouldn't get a gig anywhere else. Maybe Laird probably would, Crouch probably would. The other 3 wouldn't. So I guess my problem is that we're not only playing them, Macca, but we're also playing them predominantly in key positions, important roles, right?
Agreed.
And so, to me, this season has, as well as we've gone results-wise, and let's not forget that our season was set up by the kids because it was predominantly the kids running through the middle in the first third of the season, right? Yep. So we've basically wasted 15 games.
Oh, you know, the one thing, as I said, though, the injuries have helped in the sense that we have unearthed players. I forgot to mention Keane before as well. I like him much better at fullback than Butts. I think he does a better job.
Yeah, so there's just another example, right? So, and you can only play 22 plus 1. I get that, but my problem is that we are playing senior players in important roles at the expense of younger dynamic players.
I do agree that I think we've missed out in a lot of places. We could have actually developed our players faster than we have. I do agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So we probably smashed that point a bit. Shane McAdam's an interesting one. Macca, he kicks 4-1 again this week. You know, he's in and out of the game. He only had 10 disposals, 7 kicks, but kicks 4-1. Can't do much more than that as a forward. You take your opportunities when you get them. You know, he's still unsigned, which says to me that they're looking to use... He's either looking to go back home or they're looking to use him as a trade, which I'm not opposed to. I think we touched briefly on the fact that would you use McAdam in a trade with Brendan Cox, for example?
Yes, I would, yeah.
I think we both agree that you would, But gee whiz, he's like, if you want a point of difference in your forward line, and we've got Isaac Rankin, I understand that. But in terms of our marking forwards, and given that Darcy is sort of flatlining and Riley's taking a while and Tex is coming towards the end, and given that Shane has had a terrible season in terms of luck, it'd be bittersweet, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Look, I think he's 29 years of age. He's probably got, another 3 years in him? So I don't know whether...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: he always is a value for touches player. He doesn't get a heap of them, but he is a value for touches player. And as you said, like, he kicked 4 goals, and we got other people who could have kicked goals and can't. One thing about him, he can kick goals. I'd be happy to keep him, but if he was part of a trade that got us something that we really needed, well, yeah, fair enough. But put it this way, I'm happy either way.
Yeah. I'm just a bit concerned with Tex, us being so reliant on Tex for our goal kicking. And I think Tex is obviously a big part of the reason why we've had such a potent forward line this year, because he attracts the best defenders still, and it allows our smaller players to capitalise. So we've got Lockie Gallant coming through the twos, different style of player, Lockie Gallant. Shows a bit. I like the way he attacks the ball in the air, Lockie Gallant, but he doesn't hold too many of them at the moment. I don't know. I've been thinking about it more since last week, and I'm just not 100% sure whether the trade-off is worth it. I mean, Brendan Cox obviously gives us a very good defender, but our defence hasn't been terribly much of a problem. We've shown that we've got depth. We've got our 2 key defenders out injured, and yet we've not been blown off the park since. No tall has got off the chain against us since. So I don't know whether it's worth it, Macca. I'm on the fence like you, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely on the fence. I mean, I'm happy to keep him, but if trading him one thing I don't want to see him just not contracted. That would be absolutely stupid.
Oh no, no! He's too good not to be on a list. He'll be on a list somewhere. But I think if he wanted to stay in Adelaide, I think he'd be signed by now. Because you can't trade a player against his will. But I don't know. I don't know.
It makes you wonder.
In the chat.
Yeah, it does make you wonder. Because
as you say, we signed Murphy for 2 and we haven't signed McAdam. Doesn't make sense, right?
Well, I 100% agree with that. That's sort of very much back to front, isn't it?
Yeah.
An interesting one. Young Borlase. He had a very, very excellent debut. Excellent debut. And an equally rotten second game. So, do you think he's going to make it long-term thing?
Well, I would say on the weekend he got done by matchups. As I mentioned before, I think he got done by matchups. So who was he matched up on? There wasn't the right matchup wasn't there.
It had to be a small, yeah.
We already know he's a bit lacking in lateral movement. He's not terribly agile. But we also know that one-on-one against a player of a similar size, he's very handy. Now, will he make it with us? I mean, I think in our squad, with our defenders, he's always going to be a backup. Whether he would be... I don't think there's a 100-game AFL player there. That's what I think.
No, it's that lack of pace. I
actually think it's lack of size. I actually think it's lack of size. Height. If he was 3 or 4 inches taller, he'd be a very good key position player.
Yep.
But he needs to be on a third tall at his size, and at that size, he's not quick enough.
Yeah, tweener. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think was he maybe on Gunston? I can't
Um,
remember who was matched up on
I,
because I can't remember who Worrell was matched up on.
I honestly can't remember, and somebody out there may be aware of who he was on, but I usually just saw him changing arts most of the time.
Yeah. Rabbit saying Borlas was on Danaher. But that actually might be right. And I think, I think that might be right.
Yeah.
Danaher was just turning around. Anyway, look, I think the upshot of it is, Mac, and you and I, pardon me, as much as we disagree on certain players, I think generally speaking we're on the same page, that it's been a bit of a wasted second half of the season.
Well, it's obviously, that the coach has got the scent of the being in the finals in his nostrils, and he's picked his side accordingly. And the only way you got derailed off it was through injuries, which gave some young lads a go. They wouldn't have got to go otherwise. So in a way, it may cost us an opportunity to play in the 8, those injuries. But I think that in a way it's been a good thing that it happened, because it has exposed players who wouldn't have otherwise got games. Keane, for example, Nankervis, for example, they wouldn't have got games. And I think both of those two players can be very, very good players for us for a lot of years.
Yeah, 100% true. My biggest concern is the development through the midfield, which has stagnated, obviously, as we've discussed ad infinitum tonight.
Horrible. No, that is horrible. I mean, that we've been talking about the midfield, though. We've been talking about it for 4 years.
Yeah, Mordot's there asking if I've got access to get one of the coaches on. Mate, I've asked continually to get coaches on. I've never been given one. The closest I've ever got is Hamish as a recruiter. But we will try again post-season to get one of the coaches on. They're generally pretty good, the club, but we're a bit low down in the ranks when it comes to media appointments. So we tend to get the kids and the peripherals. So, but I will have a crack and see if we can get at least one of the assistants. Would be great, I think.
Yep, happy to talk to anyone.
All right, mate. So we got 2 to go, and Sydney obviously is the big one. And as we finish up the cast tonight, mate, again a little bit concerned about whether we've got cover for 1 or 2 of their dynamic forwards.
Yeah, well, they've got Gwilden, who they play Gwilden on a wing, but he also rotates through the centre as well. He's an outstanding player. They actually tagged the living daylights out of him last week and kept him down about 5 possessions in the first half. So they put him out on the wing, and he started to dominate again. He's a very, very good player. But some of their old timers, they go pretty well as well. I just think they're always a hard team to play against, Sydney. Just a hard team to play against, because they're a team that generally give you 100%.
Yeah, they continue to come at you, don't they?
They do. I mean, there's other teams, you think, yeah, look, we'll get on top of them and we'll be okay. But with Sydney, you never feel you've got that comfort. You know that they're always going to have a crack at you, because that's the way their coach is, and that's the way they play.
Yeah. Pepley up forward, mate. They'll probably play Max on him to start off with. I have similar concerns about that I did with Max on Cameron. Would you chuck Ben Keys down back as a small defender?
Well, it could be worth a try. I mean, the only problem I might have with Keane is that he's a little bit not Keane, Keys. And he's a little bit see ball, go ball.
Yeah, 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and I just don't think he's a defender, in the sense that he'll be going for the ball every time and not perhaps watching what his players doing, because that's the way he plays. He's just see ball, go ball. Papley is a very, very class individual.
Well, and he's strong too. He's a bit like Jamie Elliott for Collingwood.
Yeah.
He's dynamic and he's strong. He's hard to knock off the ball.
Yeah. Good comparison. Yep. He's a very good player.
I don't know whether we've necessarily got. Maybe Keane is the one. I know it's a bit of a size mismatch, but Keane isn't slow and he's also quite strong. Could defend him aerially. Whether he can keep up with him at ground level, I'm not quite so sure.
Pretty sure it's going to be Michelini who'll get him, but how he goes on him will depend on the way the ball is brought in. I mean, if it's brought in the air, well, he's got a bit of a chance, Michelini, to spoil, etc. But Papley is a bloke that does run. He covers, for a forward, he covers a lot of ground. He's prepared to run here, there, and everywhere to get the ball. So he's a danger. Luke Parker's in top form as well in the middle.
Very good form.
Yeah, and so I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I think they won 5 of their last 6, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, they're on a roll. Look, and we're in good nick too. Let's not. We've been a little bit negative tonight in terms of various things, but as mentioned, we never die wondering. Well, we rarely die wondering. And when we get on a roll, we're a very attractive football side to watch. I guess the thing is, will we be able to play that? Will Sydney allow us to play that style of game? And if they are succeeding in not allowing us to play that style of game, have we got other options to try and overcome them?
Well, our only other form of option is to turn into a bit of a slog, because Sydney don't mind that style of footy either. So it's quite possible they could turn it into that to try and stop our style of game. I mean, both teams would start off with their style of game, which are reasonably similar in some ways. But if one's starting to get on top, I would think the other coach would sensibly try and turn into a grind rather than let them run open.
Yeah. And last question, I think we started to talk about this last night and whatever. Sloane.
To me, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. The guy is 33 years of age. He's 34 before the season starts. He's getting slower and slower and slower. And in fairness to him, you look at him historically, he's been a great player for the club. He's been a great leader for the club. He's been the heart and the soul of the team. But, just like people age and, you just can't stay at that level forever. And time has got him, and also injury has got him. And in my opinion, he's not good enough to be in the side, let alone go on for another year with a contract. He's not this year, not quite good enough to be in it.
So I'm talking about this week.
So this week's going to be very critical because of the fact that we're going to find out, I reckon, either tomorrow or Wednesday what the situation is with Sloane. I reckon because if he was going to retire, this is the game that you would announce it before.
Correct.
So that he could get the appropriate applause and et cetera, et cetera. If they don't say anything about a contract this week, he's going to get a contract. There's no doubt about that. So, and if he's going to get a contract, he'll be playing this week.
Correct.
Because I also think it's his 250th game, isn't it?
I don't know about that. Could be. No, wasn't it 250th the other week against GWS?
Oh yeah, I think it was too. So at least we've got that out of the way. So we can't use that as another reason. Look, I wouldn't be picking him. No, I wouldn't. I would be going through. I'd find another way so that he didn't. And I think if you was picking the side, you wouldn't be picking him either.
So what you're saying is Sloane out, Rochelle into the middle, and Rankin back in.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that. Very happy with that.
Yes.
No, I'm very happy with that.
Oh dear, I don't think they'll drop him, Mac.
They should. I mean, seriously.
They might drop him back to the sub. They might take him back to the sub. They might swap Rochelle and Sloane. That'll be about it, I think.
I think that's probably what they will do. And look, that's fair enough. But I'm worried about the contract side of it because, seriously, we're going to go backwards if he gets a contract for another year. We're going to go backwards.
Well, Vardy's saying in the chat that on AFL 360, Nix was on and was quite positive about him playing next season. So there you go. You don't say that if you're about to tell the bloke to retire. Yeah.
Look, to me, it's just so wrong. It's just so wrong because of the fact that if you look what we have got, not in the 22, but outside the 22, because we've got a list of 44 players, or 43 because one went. That means that there's 21 players that aren't playing without now. Okay, throw in about 3 or maybe 4 or 5 for injuries. There's still another bloody 15 players that could want to get into the side, and we're playing a bloke that's playing on one leg. No, just not on.
Yeah, I actually find it. I don't want to prolong this podcast much longer because we've already been going for an hour and a half on top of the 20 minutes that we tried to sneak in last night. But that actually, if that holds up, if Sloane signs for another year, it might sound a bit over the top, but I'm devastated by that. I really am. I am devastated by that for many reasons. One, as I mentioned last night, I'd love to see Rory go out on a good note, and I can't see it ending well next season. But two, again, if he's there, they will bloody pick him, right? They will pick him. And it blows my mind. It blows my mind. We're tight for lift spots. We've got young kids coming through. And the other thing that really devastates me about that is that I've always pictured Sloane as a club man, right?
Yep.
And, heart and soul for the club, bleed for the club, all the rest of it. And to me, this is if Sloane decides to play on for another season, it's the most anti-club decision from a player you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, well, what I think. I know what you think, and look, I guess it's very hard when you're the individual. If you're Sloane, you're on good money. Cochin. No, I'm just saying. But if you are Sloane, you're on very good money. Everybody loves you, etc. And then, are you going to voluntarily go into oblivion? He's already said he won't. Or are you going to try and get another contract where you squeeze out another few $100,000 and wherever you're playing? I think it's one of those things that if he does go on, I think it's selfish. But then again, I suppose every individual's got a right to look after themselves and, I
disagree. I disagree with that, Macca. He's not wanting for money, right? He's not wanting for money, and what's he think he's gonna? Is he gonna try and squeeze out another year, thinking that he's going to be part of a grand final or part of a premiership? He'll be part of the reason we don't make a grand final next season, right?
I agree with that.
It's the most anti-club. If I was a young lad playing in that club, my respect for him would have diminished. Because he's costing someone a spot.
Look, I see it that way, and you see it that way. Whether he sees it that way, I don't know. But the thing is that I think the way we're seeing it is correct, because he just can't perform at the level that's required, and I think it's very, very weak of Nix and the rest of the list committee if they are going to re-sign him for another year. There are people out there who think it's very romantic to sign him for another year. He's been so good for us, and blah, 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 blah. Yes, he has been, but we're not signing for the past, we're signing for the future. And what he's going to deliver next year isn't going to be what he delivered 3 or 4 years ago.
And the biggest thing that saddens me about it all is that someone's made the decision that he can play on. You know, that's a list management decision to offer him another contract. And for all the rhetoric about rebuilding and you know, a new generation of kids coming through and all the rest of it, for all that rhetoric, what this shows to me is that the commercial reality of Rory Sloane getting another season and satisfying all the happy clappers on Facebook and in the bloody members is more important to our football club than winning a premiership, and that pisses me off. It really does.
Well, you know, as they say in the chat there, somebody mentions that, you know, got Berry, you got Dowling, you got Taylor, they're guys that want to have a crack at having a game, and you got a list clogger. You know.
Well, and Bobby Brady, sorry to cut you off, but just while I see Bobby's comment, it's very pertinent. He says Brodie Smith was on 5AA and said that Rory Sloane has earned the right to make the call. And that is what's wrong with this club, because the individuals are always bigger than the team at the Adelaide Football Club. No player earns any right to do anything at a football club. Never, ever, ever. The team is always bigger than the individual. And for Brodie Smith to come out and say that just shows me what the attitude of the club and the senior players are, and it really pisses me off.
Yeah. There's one thing I admire about Port Adelaide, and we don't have it. They are ruthless. They will trade players. But they will trade players that perhaps the supporters love. But, you know, and that are playing good football. And they'll trade it because they want to get draft picks to get, and they did. They achieved it. They got Horn Francis when they really didn't have. They started off without the capital to get him, but they're prepared to move players on to do it. And those players that leave and they go to other clubs, I would bet money that they've been told by the club that there's every chance that we won't be picking you next year, and you be best to play very well and get yourself another club. And when you look at it, they've moved out 3 or 4, maybe 5 good players in the last 3 or 4 years that would be playing in other clubs. We don't do it. We just won't do it. We just hang on. We hang on until they die.
When we had the best midfield in the comp, Tyson, Edwards, Simon Goodwood, Mark Ricciuto, Andrew McLeod, none of them retired on their own terms.
No, that's true. That actually is true.
None of them. And none of this crop of players, even Rory Sloane, has got the right to sniff any of those players' bootstraps, in my opinion, in terms of quality.
Totally agree. And we owe him nothing. He's been treated very well by the club. He's been paid very well by the club. He's been lauded by the club. He's been loved by the club. But there comes a time for everybody to say goodbye, and it should be this year.
I would love people on YouTube to drop your comments in as to what you think about the Rory Sloane re-signing. We seem to have a fair consensus here, you and me, Macca, and most of the Discord chat. So if you're watching us on YouTube during the week and you have something to say on that, I'd love to hear your comments, mate. Put your rather aged agates on the line. I had to tidy that up. I had to go through a mental Rolodex of about 20 different things I was going to say then.
They're not worth much these days, mate, so it's a small bet.
Put your wrinkly old nuts on the line. Are we getting up against Sydney?
Yeah, I'm saying yes, we will.
Yep. Yeah, I think we will too. I think we will too. I think it'll be a tough game.
We have to, and I think we will. I think the players will play like it is a final, and I think we will get up.
Yep, I'm with you, mate. I think we'll get up in a squeaker, and then it'll be all down to next week and watch us fall over against West Coast.
No, we won't. We'll beat them too. No,
look,
I do think we. Macca works the tour at the brothel.
Yeah, look, honestly, not go down that road again.
I can honestly say I've never been in one. Never had to.
Thanks, mate. Just a bit of unwarranted information there.
Yeah. But anyhow,
Well, they all come
just
and
wanted,
visit you, do they?
no comment. And so, and so
Oh dear. Come on.
they're
We're
being
nearly there.
serious.
Come on.
Being serious, we got to win our last two games, Fiend, and whether we make the 8 is going to depend on those couple of games that we're talking about. So, look, I'm very confident we will win.
Yeah. All right, mate. Me too. Look, thanks to everyone for joining us on a Monday night. Sorry for all the messing around. I really have no explanation for what happened last night because after I got my stuff sorted, I sat down and watched 360 on KO and the internet didn't drop out once. So I have no idea what happened. I don't have any idea what happened, and thankfully it hasn't happened again. So thanks to everyone on YouTube. We've had a really good crowd tonight, and there's 60 odd on YouTube watching us live, and we've had 20 odd in Discord most of the night watching us as well. Fantastic support as usual, and we really appreciate it. Have a good week, Macca. Have a good week, everyone, and we will see you on... Oh, by the way, if you are watching us on YouTube or if you're listening on iTunes or something, get around us on Discord. The links are all in our socials. The game day chat is pretty good, and the chat during the week is pretty good as well. So we will see those on Discord on Saturday night when we take on the Swannies. Until then, Mac, take it easy.
Okay. Good night.
Take care of Mrs. Mac.
Oh, I will. She's worth looking after. She looked after me, actually.
Yeah, very good. And everyone stay safe, and we'll see you next Sunday night for another wrap. Until then, good night, everyone.
Yeah, good night, all.